Okay, let's just take a breath. On the night of June 24th, 2025, something shifted in the political universe. The air in New York City crackled with an energy we haven't felt in a long time. Zohran Mamdani, a 33-year-old Democratic socialist, did the impossible. He won the Democratic primary for mayor of New York City. This wasn't just a win, it was a political earthquake. It sent a message that echoed far beyond the 5 boroughs, reaching every corner of a country where progressives were feeling beaten down after the tough losses of 2024. This was more than just an election night headline. It was a statement. It was a sign that maybe, just maybe, the old rules of politics were starting to break. For months, the experts and the pundits had a story they liked to tell. They said a young, unapologetically progressive candidate couldn't win. They said New York was tired of big ideas and wanted a return to the familiar. They pointed to former Governor Andrew Cuomo, a political heavyweight with name recognition and powerful friends, as the inevitable choice. They said money talks and the millions being spent against Mamdani would drown out his message. But they forgot one crucial detail. They forgot to talk to the people who actually live here, the ones who ride the subway, struggle with rent, and dream of a city that works for everyone, not just the wealthy few. Mamdani's victory was a direct rebuke to that old way of thinking. It was a clear signal that voters were hungry for something different. They weren't just looking for a new manager for the city. They were looking for a new vision. This win was especially powerful coming after a difficult year for the Democratic Party nationally. It felt like a light turning on in a dark room. It showed that even when things looked bleak, a campaign built on bold ideas and real human connection can still triumph. It was a lesson that you don't have to shrink your ambitions or moderate your message to win. In fact, it proved that being bold might be the only way forward in these tough political times. The shockwaves were immediate. Suddenly, a candidate who was once dismissed as a long shot was being hailed as the future. At 33, he is now on track to be the city's youngest mayor in over a century and its first ever Muslim leader. That is historic. Think about that. Attorney General Letitia James captured the moment perfectly. She stood on that stage and said, "His critics said that he didn't have the right name. Well, now all of them know his goddamn name." And she was right. Overnight, Zohran Mamdani became a name that stood for hope, for change, and for the incredible power of a movement that refused to be ignored. This wasn't just his victory, it was a victory for everyone who dared to believe a better city was possible. Let's get into the details because the numbers tell an incredible story. This wasn't a squeaker. This was decisive. Zohran Mamdani secured 43.5% of the vote in a crowded field. That's 432,305 New Yorkers who chose a new path. By crossing the 40% threshold, he avoided a messy, prolonged ranked choice runoff, claiming a clear mandate. His closest rival, Andrew Cuomo, the former governor backed by the old guard of the Democratic Party, finished with 36.4%. The rest of the field, including respected figures like Brad Lander and Adrienne Adams, were left far behind. This wasn't just a win, it was a commanding performance that left no room for doubt about what Democratic voters wanted. The victory was built on a brilliant geographic strategy. Mamdani didn't just win, he dominated in the city's high turnout boroughs. He built an unstoppable coalition in his home turf of Queens, winning it by 7 points. He crushed it in Brooklyn with a massive 17-point lead, and he even captured the heart of Manhattan, winning the borough by 5 points. These are the places where the city's pulse is strongest, where new ideas take root and grow. Cuomo, on the other hand, relied on strongholds in lower turnout areas like the Bronx and Staten Island. Even his narrow wins on the wealthy Upper East and Upper West sides of Manhattan couldn't stop the tide. The map of New York City was redrawn that night, colored by a new generation of voters. What makes these numbers even more astounding is the financial Goliath that Mamdani had to face. A super PAC called Fix the City, funded by billionaires and corporate interests, unloaded a staggering $20 million in negative ads. In total, between $25 and $30 million in outside money was spent to stop him. Think about that. That's a mountain of cash designed to paint him as too radical, too inexperienced, too different. Yet for every dollar they spent, Mamdani's campaign seemed to gain another volunteer, another supporter, another person ready to fight back. It was a real-life David versus Goliath story, and on June 24th, David landed the knockout blow. This election completely rewrote the rules of political spending in New York. It proved that you can't just buy an election anymore. The old playbook of flooding the airwaves with attack ads has its limits, especially when you're up against a genuine people-powered movement. Senator Bernie Sanders, a key supporter, put it best on social media. They have the money, we have the people. And in the end, the people were more powerful. They showed up, they voted, and they sent a crystal-clear message that the future of New York City is not for sale. The numbers don't lie. They sing a song of a revolution that started on the streets and ended at the ballot box. So, how did he do it? How did a grassroots campaign defeat an avalanche of corporate cash? The answer is simple, but it's not easy. It was people. It was an army of true believers. Mamdani's campaign mobilized an incredible 45,000 volunteers. These weren't paid staffers. These were teachers, nurses, students, and artists who gave their evenings and weekends to the cause. They knocked on 1.5 million doors across the 5 boroughs. They didn't just drop off a flyer, they had real conversations with their neighbors. They talked about rising rents, crowded subways, and the dream of a fairer city. They listened. This wasn't just a political campaign, it was a community organizing project on a massive scale. This ground game was powered by a surge of new and young voters. The data is stunning. Voters under the age of 44 cast nearly half of all the early ballots. The 25 to 34 age group led the charge, showing up in huge numbers. These are the people who are often told they are apathetic or disengaged. This election proved that theory dead wrong. It turns out, if you give young people something real to vote for, they will move mountains for you. What's more, a full 25% of early voters hadn't cast a ballot in a Democratic primary since 2012. Mamdani's campaign didn't just mobilize the base, it created a new one. It brought thousands of people into the democratic process for the very first time. The energy was electric. You could feel it at the rallies, in the subway stations, and on the street corners. Volunteers weren't just following a script, they were sharing their own stories. They were talking about how a rent freeze would keep their family in their home, or how free buses would make their daily commute more affordable. This authenticity is something money can never buy. While the opposition was spending millions on slick, negative TV ads, the Mamdani campaign was building a human connection, one conversation at a time. It was a strategy built on trust and shared values, and it created a bond with voters that attack ads couldn't break. This victory is a testament to the idea that in a democracy, the most valuable currency isn't the dollar, it's the people. It's the passion, the dedication, and the hard work of thousands of ordinary citizens who decide to stand up and demand change. The Mamdani campaign proved that an organized, motivated, and inspired electorate can overcome any obstacle, no matter how much money is stacked against them. This wasn't just a win for a candidate. It was a win for a method. It was a win for every person who believes that our democracy should be driven by the voices of the many, not the checkbooks of the few. This victory is so much bigger than one man or one city. It's a powerful shot of hope for American democracy itself. In an era where many people feel like their voices don't matter, where politics seems like a game played by billionaires and insiders, this election was a stunning counter-narrative. It was a real-world example of people power triumphing over entrenched interests. It showed that when everyday citizens band together, they can take on the most powerful forces in the country and win. This is the story we need to be telling our kids. This is the proof that our system, for all its flaws, can still work for us. After the national setbacks in 2024, a lot of progressives and Democrats were feeling demoralized. There was a sense that the country was moving backward, that our best efforts weren't enough. Mamdani's win cut through that gloom like a bolt of lightning. It provided a new roadmap, a different way forward. It suggested that the answer isn't to play it safe or to water down our beliefs. The answer is to go bigger, to be bolder, and to inspire people with a vision of the world as it could be, not just as it is. It showed that you can build a winning coalition by exciting the base and bringing new people into the fold rather than chasing a mythical center that seems to be constantly shifting. The symbolism of this win is profound. It represents a changing of the guard, a passing of the torch to a new generation of leaders. Mamdani's coalition was a beautiful reflection of New York City itself, young, diverse, and full of energy. He actively courted Muslim New Yorkers, built strong alliances with Jewish and black candidates, and spoke to the shared struggles of working-class people of all backgrounds. This is the future of the Democratic Party. It is a future that embraces its multicultural identity and finds strength in its diversity. This victory says that our differences don't have to divide us. They can be the source of our greatest power when we unite around common goals. Ultimately, this election was a reminder of the fundamental promise of democracy, that the people are the ultimate authority. For too long, we've been told that money is the most powerful force in politics. This win challenges that cynical belief. It proves that an organized movement, fueled by passion and a righteous cause, is more powerful still. It's a call to action for every person who has ever felt powerless or disillusioned. It tells us not to give up, not to check out, but to lean in and get involved. Zohran Mamdani didn't win this election alone. He won it because thousands of people decided that they were tired of waiting for change and decided to become the change themselves. That is a lesson for all of us. So what exactly got so many people, especially young voters, this fired up? Well, it wasn't just about personality, it was about policy. Mamdani's campaign put forward a clear, bold, and ambitious agenda that spoke directly to the everyday struggles of New Yorkers. And right at the top of the list was housing. In a city where rent feels like an anchor dragging everyone down, he proposed a simple, powerful idea: a rent freeze on all rent-stabilized apartments. This wasn't some complicated 10-point plan. It was a direct solution to a crisis that affects millions, and it resonated deeply with people who are honestly tired of seeing their paychecks eaten up by housing costs. This promise alone was a major driver of his support. Then there was transportation. Mamdani championed the idea of making all city buses free. Think about what that means for a working-class family, a student, or a senior citizen on a fixed income. It means more money in their pocket at the end of the month. It means more freedom to move around the city, to get to work, to see family, to access services. It's a policy that makes life easier and more affordable for the masses, and it's a tangible benefit that people could immediately understand. These weren't abstract ideas. They were concrete proposals designed to improve the quality of life for ordinary New Yorkers, and that's what got people excited and motivated to vote. The campaign also wasn't afraid to talk about where the money would come from. Mamdani proposed raising $10 billion in new revenue by increasing taxes on big corporations and the city's wealthiest residents. This was a direct challenge to the idea that we have to choose between a balanced budget and funding essential public services. He argued that those who have benefited the most from the city's economy should pay their fair share to make it work for everyone. This message of economic fairness was a powerful rallying cry. It tapped into a deep-seated feeling that the system is rigged in favor of the rich, and it offered a clear plan to start leveling the playing field. Finally, he pushed for innovative solutions to everyday problems, like creating publicly owned grocery stores to fight food deserts and bring down prices. These weren't just policies. They were declarations of what a government can and should do for its people. They painted a picture of a city that actively works to solve problems, rather than leaving its citizens to fend for themselves. This bold, progressive vision is what ignited the passion of his supporters. It gave them something to believe in, something to fight for. It showed them that politics doesn't have to be about small, incremental changes. It can be about big, transformative ideas that have the power to change lives. Winning the Democratic primary was a monumental achievement, but the fight is far from over. Now, Zohran Mamdani faces the general election in November, and honestly, it's shaping up to be a political battle royale. The field is crowded and, well, pretty complex. He'll be running against the incumbent mayor, Eric Adams, who has actually shed his Democratic affiliation to run as an independent. This move lets Adams appeal to more moderate and conservative voters who might be wary of Mamdani's progressive platform. It really sets up a clear ideological clash for the soul of the city, pitting a vision of grassroots change against one of law and order centrism. Adding another layer of drama, Andrew Cuomo is publicly considering jumping back into the race as an independent. After conceding the primary, he left the door wide open, and his presence on the ballot could fracture the vote in unpredictable ways. Cuomo could pull votes from both Mamdani and Adams, turning the election into a chaotic free-for-all. And then there's the Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa, whose populist appeal, while niche, could draw a dedicated base of supporters. With multiple independent and third-party candidates in the mix, winning in November will require building an even broader coalition than the one that secured the primary. The challenge for Mamdani will be to hold on to his progressive base while also persuading undecided New Yorkers that his vision is the best path forward for the entire city. His opponents will undoubtedly spend the next few months painting him as too extreme, too divisive, and just too risky for New York. They'll use his bold policy proposals not as a source of inspiration, but as a weapon against him, claiming they'll bankrupt the city or lead to chaos. Mamdani's team will need to be prepared to counter these attacks with a message of unity, competence, and common sense, showing that his ideas are not just idealistic but also practical. This general election will be the ultimate test of his movement's strength. Can the same grassroots energy that won the primary be sustained and even expanded through the fall? Can the campaign successfully frame the election as a choice between a future that works for all New Yorkers and a return to the politics of the past? The path to City Hall is still steep. It will require discipline, strategic thinking, and an unwavering commitment to the people-powered organizing that got him this far. The primary was just the first round. The championship match is yet to come, and honestly, the entire country will be watching to see if this grassroots revolution can go all the way. Let's be real for a second. Winning an election on big promises is one thing. Delivering on them is a whole different ballgame. If Zohran Mamdani wins in November, he will wake up the next day facing the immense challenge of turning his revolutionary platform into reality. Governing is hard, and governing New York City is, honestly, one of the toughest jobs in American politics. His agenda, which includes a rent freeze, free buses, and new taxes on the wealthy, will face fierce resistance from powerful interests. The real estate lobby, corporate business groups, and Wall Street will not simply roll over. They will fight his policies every step of the way, in the city council and in the court of public opinion. He will also have to navigate the complex political landscape of New York State. Many of his most ambitious plans, especially those related to taxes and rent regulation, will require approval from the state government in Albany. This means he will have to forge a working relationship with Governor Kathy Hochul and other moderate Democrats who may not share his progressive vision. Building those bridges and finding common ground will be a delicate balancing act. He will need to be a skilled negotiator and a savvy political operator, capable of making deals without compromising on his core principles. This is where the idealism of a campaign meets the pragmatism of governance. Furthermore, Mamdani will inherit a city with enormous challenges. He will be responsible for managing a massive municipal workforce, a multi-billion-dollar budget, and a vast array of public services, from schools and hospitals to sanitation and public safety. Every decision he makes will have real-world consequences for millions of people. He will have to prove that he is not just a visionary, but also a competent administrator who can make the city run effectively. His critics will be watching his every move, ready to pounce on any misstep. He will need to build a talented and experienced team around him to help manage the day-to-day complexities of the job. The biggest challenge of all might be managing the expectations of his own supporters. He was elected on a wave of hope and a promise of transformative change. But real change takes time. There will be setbacks, compromises, and moments of frustration. He will need to maintain the energy and engagement of the very movement that elected him, even when progress is slow. He must communicate openly and honestly with the public, explaining the obstacles he faces and celebrating the small victories along the way. The transition from revolutionary candidate to effective mayor is a difficult one, but it is the essential next step in making his vision for a better New York a reality. New York City is not a monolith. It's a magnificent, messy, and complicated tapestry of different cultures, religions, and political beliefs. To govern it effectively, a mayor must be a leader for everyone, not just for those who voted for them. One of the most significant challenges for Zohran Mamdani will be to bridge the divides that exist within the city. His strong pro-Palestinian stance, for example, has been a source of controversy and concern for some in New York's large Jewish community. Building trust and fostering dialogue between communities that are in pain will be a critical part of his job. It will require empathy, a willingness to listen, and a consistent message of shared humanity. The campaign itself offered a glimpse of how this could be done. Mamdani actively built a multiracial, multi-faith coalition. His close alliance with Brad Lander, a prominent Jewish progressive, was a powerful symbol of unity. On the campaign trail, Lander often said, "We are not going to let anyone divide Muslim New Yorkers and Jewish New Yorkers." This spirit of solidarity must now be carried from the campaign trail into the mayor's office. Mamdani will need to continue showing up in every community, listening to all voices, and demonstrating that he understands the unique fears and hopes of the city's diverse populations. This work is not easy, but it is essential for healing and moving forward together. Beyond religious and ethnic divides, there are also deep economic and ideological divisions. The election results showed a city split between the progressive vision that powered Mamdani's victory and the more centrist or conservative views held by many others. A successful mayor cannot simply ignore nearly half the voters who chose someone else. He will need to find ways to address the concerns of business owners who are worried about new taxes and residents who are anxious about public safety. This doesn't mean abandoning his principles, but it does mean engaging in good faith conversation and searching for areas of common ground where progress can be made for the benefit of the entire city. Ultimately, the task is to build a sense of shared purpose. It's about reminding all New Yorkers that despite our differences, we're all in this together. We all want safe streets, good schools, and a city where our children can thrive. Mamdani's success as mayor will depend not just on his ability to pass legislation, but on his ability to unite the city around a common vision. He has spoken about fighting anti-Semitism and Islamophobia with the same vigor, recognizing that an attack on one community is an attack on all. This is the leadership New York needs. It's a leadership that doesn't shy away from our differences, but instead sees them as a source of strength, weaving them together to create a stronger, more resilient social fabric. Zohran Mamdani's victory in the New York City mayoral primary is more than just a political story. It is a spark of inspiration. It is a blueprint. In a time of deep political cynicism, it offers a tangible example of how change can happen from the ground up. It provides a potential roadmap for progressives and Democrats across the country who are searching for a way to reconnect with voters and win back their trust. The lesson is clear. Don't be afraid of big ideas. Don't run from your values. Instead, build a movement around a bold and hopeful vision for the future, and trust that the people will respond. This win is a powerful call to action for all of us. It reminds us that citizenship is not a spectator sport. Democracy isn't something that just happens every 4 years. It's something we have to build and fight for every single day. The 45,000 volunteers who knocked on doors for this campaign didn't wait for permission to make a difference. They saw a problem, they saw a solution, and they got to work. This is the spirit we need to carry forward. Whether it's getting involved in a local campaign, joining a community organization, or simply having tough conversations with our neighbors, we all have a role to play in shaping the world we want to live in. Of course, the road ahead is long and filled with challenges. There will be tough fights, inevitable setbacks, and moments where it feels easier to give up than to press on. But hope is a discipline. This victory has refilled our reserves of it. It has shown us what is possible when we organize, when we unite, and when we dare to demand a better world. The energy from this campaign cannot be allowed to fade away after Election Day. It must be channeled into a sustained movement for justice and equality, holding our elected leaders accountable and continuing to push for the policies that will improve people's lives. So let this story be a source of strength. Let it be a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the power of the people can still win the day. Zohran Mamdani's epic victory was not an endpoint. It was a beginning. It's the start of a new chapter for New York City and potentially for the country. It is a testament to the idea that our voices, when raised together, can be louder than the sound of money. The future is unwritten, and this win has shown us that we have the power to write it ourselves. Let's stay active, let's stay engaged, and let's continue to build on this incredible moment of hope.